When you were in this moment, was it just rage that you felt?
I was completely out of control. I was in 7th grade. I was about, 13, 14 years old. And this kid got beat to the pulp. And he lost some of his vision in his eyes. And if you ever listen to this, I'm truly sorry. I regret that.
This is the Vance Crow Podcast.
Welcome back to the podcast. I'm glad you're here. On Wednesdays, I sit down with an expert to figure out what sort of habits, discipline, or obsession did it take to become a master in your field. And this week, we are speaking to a master of all things, fighting. The ability to exert your will on another person, or at the very least, being able to keep another person from being able to exert their will upon you. I'm talking about Brazilian Jiu Jitsu coach Mike Rethmeyer, who actually also happens to be my Brazilian Jiu Jitsu coach. Now, this interview is a little bit different than other interviews, not least of which because we're talking to a world-class fighter, but also because all of the other people that I've ever interviewed, I've only had a little bit of knowledge about what their skill set is. I'm not really going to know very much about a cardiologist, and I've never drawn a building like an architect. But because Mike is my coach, I've actually had the experience of grappling with him, of rolling on the ground and trying to choke him out or to move his arm in such a way that he will give up. And I liken the experience to a 6-year-old trying to fight with their father. And what this has given me is the express knowledge, the visceral understanding of just how high up on the mountain that Mike is in the mastery of his craft. I've rolled with people that are every level in between, the very new beginner like me, all the way up to other black belts like Mike. And I can tell you that his level of knowledge about how to maneuver his body, about how to control himself, is beyond anything that I can ever even imagine getting to. And yet I show up to class 2 to 3 times a week trying to learn it. This is an interesting interview, and even if you have no interest at all in martial arts or fighting, the conversation is really about what did it take, what sort of experiences did a child have to decide that violence was going to be the route that they were going to go. They were going to develop a knowledge of how to fight and push back on other people. It's a really interesting and I would say at times a heartbreaking conversation because you understand what Mike had to go through to become the hulking, respected master of fighting that he is today. I am so proud to bring you this interview. I hope you enjoy it, and I especially hope that it is way out of left field for you. I know how different this is than all the other interviews, but Mike was an excellent guest and talked about things with a level of candor that we should all be grateful for. So without further ado, buckle in and enjoy this conversation with Brazilian Jiu Jitsu coach Mike Rethmeyer. Mike Rethmeyer, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
It is great to see you, Coach. I needed somebody to jump in and fill in for Jackie Joyner Kersey. She had been invited to be on the podcast, and we're working on it, but she couldn't do this week. And I was like, oh no, where is there a person I can talk to that I think has an expertise as deep as an Olympic gold medal athlete? And you were the one that came to mind because you have an expertise in Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, and I have actually rolled on the ground with you. I've tried as hard as I can to choke you to death, and I have absolutely no chance of being able to do it. So it's clear to me that you have a deep expertise in Jiu Jitsu, and I am honored that you would come here and talk on the podcast about that expertise.
Wow, man. Thank you very much. I really appreciate being here right now. It's even a bigger honor to replace Miss Kersey, I guess. Yeah.
Well, so let's talk about jiu-jitsu as a form of martial arts. What is it? When I tell it to people and I can tell and I say, do you know what that is? They say, is that like karate? And I don't have a good answer for what jiu-jitsu is. It's not defined in my mind. I know it when I see it, but I don't know that I could say this is jiu-jitsu.
Okay. Well, so what I tell the folks that don't really understand martial arts that well, I basically tell them, like, think about wrestling. Because everybody's familiar with wrestling, especially American, right? The wrestling culture is high here in America. And then I says, measure wrestling with submission holds. And the only difference is that we fight from our back. In wrestling, the goal is to put the person on their back. That includes all of it. That way they can have a better understanding of it. Of course, it's very different in wrestling, but
yeah, because in wrestling, I mean, I did it just a little bit. There are rules on, hey, you have to have his arm in order to have his neck.
Yes,
that does not exist in jiu-jitsu.
No. But that's probably the simplified form for the
average person.
Yeah, the average person doesn't have any idea what it is.
But there's also no like kicking or biting or eye gouging or breaking of fingers.
Let me give you a good general explanation. So jiu-jitsu itself in Japanese, it means gentle art. Okay? Gentle art meaning that there's no striking. So it's based off a manipulation of your opponent, rendering them through submission holds. So basically you close the gap to take away the strikes, and then you control the person in the ground, and then you submit them,
And when you say submit, you mean make it so they'll say, I give up, I give up.
Yes. They got to tap 3 times and you apply submission hold, and that's the mutual respect you have amongst when you roll with each other, and then you just basically have to let go,
So that is the categorical difference between jiu-jitsu and literally everything else I do in my life, is that I show up to your gym and there are a bunch of guys at varying degrees of skill, technical proficiency at this art. But then when you come in, you take off your shoes, you put on the gi, you bow, you walk onto the mats. And now when you roll with somebody, which is you actually grapple with them, once you're done with drilling and doing the exercises, you actually roll live and you go as hard as you are capable of going. You are allowed to go full speed. And then when the person says, I've had enough, then everybody stops. And instead of it being like you leave that place where everybody's fighting or angry at each other, I'm closer with the guys at my jiu-jitsu studio than I've been with any other group of guys in my life, I think.
Man, that's fantastic to hear. My wife came to me a while back ago, and she said that some of the folks at the schools told her how they love being there and how the camaraderie, like you said, it's high, and everybody just loves being there, and it's like a big family. And that's how I envision my clubs being, Vance. I want to make sure people want to be there. It's like you said, we're trying to technically kill each other when we're training. So I don't want people to think that, oh man, this is really hard, I'm sore, I'm achy, because you're going to be sore and achy the next day when you train. But I want to make sure you guys go there and exert the energy and learn a very unique skill that will actually teach you how to defend your life, And at the same time, I want everybody to be a big brotherhood,
Well, and that happens, and it happens because when you go to jiu-jitsu, you have this surreal experience that somebody can think that they can imagine, but until it's actually happening, you can't, which is somebody takes your collar, for example, and squeezes it in just the right way that you cannot breathe. And you realize if this person chose not to let me go, I would be done. There's literally nothing I can do about it at this point. And yet you get that close to the edge. And then when you're done, I, pop up, give the guy a hug, clap hands and say, how did you do that to me? Because I want to learn how to do that.
Yeah, that's what it's all about. I mean, it's controlled, it gives you self-control, gives you awareness of, not hurting a person too. I think this is why it's great for a self-defense style. Somebody try to really come out and attack you in the street or something, you'll be able to render the person without even hurting you. You got control of what you're doing.
Is that why you learned it? Because you were doing self-defense? I mean, because to make sure everybody understands, your full-time job, who you are, how you provide for your family, is that you run a jiu-jitsu gym that's actually got 2 separate gyms that people go to, one on one side of the Mississippi, one on the other, one in Illinois, one in Missouri. And you run classes day in and day out there teaching people how to do jiu-jitsu.
Yes. I started because I want to learn how to defend myself, Do you want to hear the background story?
Yeah, I mean, like, what I didn't have the fear that I needed to defend myself. Well, other than from my brother. That's it.
So let's go back to when I was born. I was born here in the United States. My dad was a Marine. He's in the service. And I was born in Camp Pendleton, San Diego. My mom, she was young. They met down in Brazil, and they came back when I was born. I was born here, And my mom is Brazilian. So, I moved down there after I was born. I lived in Brazil until I was 19 years old, and I moved back to the U.S. I'm 40 years old now. So basically, I'm not going to get too much my family story, but let's basically talk about how I got involved with jiu-jitsu. Long story short, I got bullied really bad when I grew up, throughout.
You did?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I was just this short, little, chubby kid, that I looked different. I look German. My last name is Rethmeyer, so I look German, So I look very different from where I grew up, and I used to get picked on a lot. And I used to get in fights, get in a lot of trouble. And
how did those fights start? What were they over?
The kids will tease me about me being chubby, and and then I didn't know what to do, and I didn't accept it. So I started beating them up on them, and things just escalated. You're not supposed to do that at school, and I got in trouble. I got kicked out of several schools throughout the years.
They were that bad of fights?
Yes. Shamefully, but I think it's important for people to listen to this, because a lot of people think that martial arts, it induces more violence. It's the biggest BS I've ever heard in my life. Martial arts gave me control of my actions. It gives you self-control. You have awareness of what's going on. I have people in the past getting on my face and cussing me, and I just kind of like blow them off. I laugh and blow them off,
Because you now feel like, I know what I could do to this person.
Exactly.
But the cost of engaging with them physically could be a lot higher than he realizes.
Yes. So actually, even in like 7th grade, I hurt a kid really bad. He was hospitalized, and that's when I decided that I need to do something about it.
Hospitalized because you were punching him?
Yes, we got into altercation. It kept building up. I was going to a Catholic school in São Paulo, and things got escalated. I kept talking to the head priest, my parents. I tried to do everything in the book I could to make sure to avoid any confrontation, physical confrontation. But it got to the point that I had to do something to defend myself. These 2 guys tried to jump me, and I called them out one by one, and they accepted the challenge. And then they were a little group. I mean, these guys were instigators. They're bad influence around the kids. Some of them were drug dealers. And I basically knocked this kid out, and I was so out of control. I got mounted on him, and I beat him up to the pulp. His face swelled up like a football. Like imagine a football sideways. That's how his face looked. And the kid...
When you were in this moment...
Mm-hmm.
Was it just rage that you felt?
I was completely out of control. I was in 7th grade. I was about, 13, 14 years old. And this kid got beat to the pulp. And he lost some of his vision in his eyes. And if you ever listen to this, I'm truly sorry. I regret that,
And when that resolves, so you get off of him and he gets taken to a hospital?
Yes. And then after that, the other kids were thugs. They start doing death threats on me.
Oh, it got worse for you?
Yes. And then my dad actually had to come and rescue me for the school using his handgun, because they said they're going to kill me if I walk outside. That's how bad it was. Even the head priest didn't know what to do, because he can control them.
And that's real, that there were kids there that their threats of violence were so strong that a man would need to come with a gun.
Yes. Yeah. That was the case. Luckily for me, my dad, he was a Marine, and he actually did private security. And he was allowed to have a gun. In Brazil, gun laws are very strict, So in the case, my dad had to, because these kids were threatening me, and a lot of them were like street thugs.
And what was going on in your area that these kind of street thugs were at school or around school?
So a lot of Catholic schools in Brazil, they're like a lot cheaper than you think here in the United States. The public school system is not the greatest. So if you want a better education, the religious schools are a more affordable way for your kid to get a better education. But they also do, I guess, a lot of charity, so they allow a lot of kids to come in, So sometimes you get mixed up with the bad.
You could be in a neighborhood where that's better than the public school, so it doesn't cost that much. And so kids that are troubled, their parents send them there, hoping that it's going to help them, but maybe it's not.
Yes, and that's kind of like how the whole thing went down. And from there on, I just fully dedicated to start studying martial arts.
Yeah, but how did you even know what to find? I mean, people do that. Did you go straight to jiu-jitsu?
No. So I was already being bullied a lot at that school before this whole incident happened. And my uncle, Marcelo, he used to do Taekwondo, right? So he told me, he kept telling, I remember having a conversation with my mom, says, hey, he's getting in trouble. I think martial arts would be good for him, I'm
going to move this just so it's right in front of you. You don't have to change the way you're sitting. Just make sure you're talking to it.
So, I was always the kind of person that I want to do the best. I want to train with the best. You know, I don't care about convenience. I'll just drive. I do whatever I have to do. I mean, at the time I was 13, 14 years old.
And
so
you had a drive to be the best.
Yes.
At that age.
Yes. I wanted to, like, if I'm going to do things the right way. That's how I've always been. You know, I'm not going to just half-ass everything. So I found out about this Taekwondo school in Bairro da Liberdade. So I grew up in São Paulo. São Paulo is like New York City, a giant metropolitan city. And, you know, we had this little China area, which is all the Asian neighborhood. So for me to get there from where I lived, I had to take 2 public buses. You know, I had to connect to a terminal and then go to the other place. So it took me just to get there well over an hour, you know? So, but I was dedicated and I went, and because at that school at the time, Taekwondo was still in the Olympics, so they trained Olympic athletes there. So I want to train with the best. Went there, I start training. I mean,
and so Taekwondo,
yes.
my understanding of it is it's kicking, punching,
yes.
in a format where you have some finesse and you can block the other person. It's not just like boxing.
Yes, no, yes. Taekwondo is mainly like strikes below the head, you know? So you're not allowed to punch the head, and it's based off on a point system, you know? This is when I was 14 years old, I went, and I was expecting already right off the bat to learn how to spar and do all that kind of stuff. So I had really high expectations. That was always one of my biggest mistakes, you know? The old school coach, he was really cool, old Korean guy. I liked him, you know, and he gave me this booklet for me to study. That was the first thing he gave me. He says, you need to study this and learn, and then you may be ready for your first rank. So, you know, I opened up this booklet. There's a lot of stuff in there in Korean, you know, but there's a lot of good stuff, you know, for a kid, you know, so I had to learn how to.
And it's like Korean moves or what? It's Korean culture.
Yeah, it's Korean culture. I had to learn numbers and some terms associated to the art itself.
No kidding.
Yeah, and then he also wanted me to have a code of conduct towards me, my homework, my daily chores, my discipline. You know, I thought that was really cool, you know, when I saw that, you know, and...
what do you mean? Because why was that cool? I mean, you don't think of discipline as being something that's cool.
No, because right off the bat, he gave me purpose, you know, when I got there. When I was a kid, and I stop and think about it nowadays, that was purpose, you know, so I understood why the coach did that. You know, so he gave me a book to have some purpose of what I'm doing. You know, that's kind of like a lifestyle, right? I have to be a disciplined person to be able to be good at it. And that's why I think what martial arts is all about, is discipline. But then I spent a lot of time stretching. They really want to teach you how to stretch so you can throw those high kicks and spinning kicks and everything that they teach you. And I did it for a few months. And I remember I tested for my first stripe and I got it. And I think within the 4th or 5th month, I started asking the coach if I could start sparring a little bit, because I used to watch some of the black belts spar. And he was very strict about it. He said, no, you need to train more. You need to get more flexible. Your kicks need to get better. You need to improve, period. And I was doing everything. I was dropping weight. I was doing everything he told me to. I follow everything to the teeth. Well, the bullying was going on at school at the same time.
It's still going on.
Yeah, still going on. This is before the whole incident when I hurt the kid. This is at the same time frame, okay? So I try to have a heart-to-heart conversation with him about what's going on, and he says, no, you need to control yourself and this and that, this and that.
This is to the Taekwondo coach. You're saying, this is what's happening at my school, and he says...
Yeah, he says, don't engage. And the problem, Vance, is nobody want to do anything about it, you know? So to any kid out there that's being bullied right now, you know, just don't give up, you know, because you need to do something for yourself. You need to go after yourself. Don't rely on people to do things for you.
And
you know?
That's because the only person you can control is yourself.
It's yourself, exactly.
And in that physical confrontation, there is nobody coming to save you.
Yeah.
Rely on yourself.
Exactly. And, you know, so you need to do something for yourself. You need to do something that gives you control. It gives you purpose, you know? And that way when people come and they're rude to you or mean or say ignorant things, it's almost like you created like a wall around you. It's not going to bother you at all. It doesn't bother me at all. You know, people are rude or ignorant. So I just kind of like, oh, whatever, man.
Because it doesn't get in the way of your purpose.
Exactly.
And as long as it doesn't get in the way of your purpose, then there's no problem.
Exactly.
But if you don't have a purpose, then they can get in the way of it because you're just wandering around and it's like somebody stands in front of you.
Exactly. So, you know, I don't want to ramble too much about this. Let me just get to the point. So I pushed the coach to the point that, okay, you're going to spar. So I remember there was this little dude, and he was super fast. But I mean, I was 14 years old. He put me to spar with him, right? So the guy start, throwing spinning back kicks. He jacked me in the stomach really hard. I remember this. Out of spike, I threw a big haymaker on him.
What's a haymaker?
So it's an overhand right punch.
Okay.
And I hit him crystal clean on his temple. He fell down, hit his head on this bench. He was hurt. Coach flipped out on me that I couldn't do that. That's not Taekwondo. And I apologize, and I just told him, I just want to learn how to defend myself. I'm trying to follow everything you're telling me, and this is what's going on right now with my life.
Oh.
And I am now learning how to defend myself.
And now I'm trying. I want to go full speed.
Yes.
And now you're telling me I'm doing something wrong for going full speed.
Yeah. But in Taekwondo, you're not supposed to punch to the head. I threw a big haymaker in a guy's head, and I knocked him down.
So you did break the rules, but the rules are set up such that there's way more controls on what that situation is all about.
Yes, obviously I didn't have the self-control at the time. And so from there, the coach pretty much kicked me out of the school. So the guy that I knocked down, he came up to me and he's like, hey man, sorry how things went. I understand what you're trying to do. And he says, why don't you check out Muay Thai kickboxing? So I'm like, that's more, I think, what you're looking for, And that was one of his top students telling me to check out Muay Thai kickboxing. So if you don't know what Muay Thai kickboxing is, it's traditional kickboxing from Thailand. And
it's big in MMA right now.
It is. The Thai boxers are, it's actually their national sport. Thai boxers are national sport. And they basically is straight up, toe-to-toe, hard leg kicks to the body, to the legs, elbows and knees, and pretty much incorporates some of boxing techniques too, with straight punches and hooks and uppercuts. So it's a really raw form of striking. It's very culture rich. And it's all over the world. MMA, it's a huge art that's incorporated into MMA, which MMA incorporates a lot of different arts.
And what differentiates it from Taekwondo?
So the Taekwondo, it's basically point system, so you don't have to strike hard. You do a strike, you count a point, which it's probably a healthy way so you can learn how to apply striking. Now, Muay Thai is straight up, I'm going to kick the crap out of you.
Oh, it's full speed.
Toe to toe, yes. Yeah, and you're really learning how to basically batter somebody in the most vicious way. How
do those guys train for the long term doing Muay Thai? Aren't you going to get knocked out? Aren't you going to have broken legs and ribs?
The Thais, they a lot of them get gangrene in their legs, from abusing their legs to condition their shin so they can tolerate the kicks and check the kicks when somebody kicks them.
Oh man.
Yeah. So a lot of them have a really short career.
So that's where you ended up going, to the Muay Thai dungeon.
And here's the best part. There was one of the best Muay Thai gyms from walking distance from my house on the entire city, And São Paulo has millions of people. So I was so happy about that. It was just a quick mile walk, to the gym, and next thing.
There are people that are thinking, a mile walk, that's so far. But for you're like, that's nothing.
For the city, that's nothing. That's absolutely nothing. It was about 4 or 5 city blocks, It was nothing. It was a piece of cake. So I remember getting to that gym, and Marcos Rodriguez was my coach, man. He was an awesome guy. And there's another coach too at the time. His name was Vedas. He was both really good Muay Thai kickboxers, man. They're badass guys, champions. So for people who don't know that, have you ever heard of Shootbox?
No.
Shootbox is the team from Curitiba, Brazil. They're the big Muay Thai team that had Anderson Silva, Everley Silva. You heard of those guys, right?
Yeah, sure.
Asuero Silva, Shogun Rua. So they're like one of the top teams in MMA, back in the 2000s, the early 2000s, and they were kicking the crap out of everybody. So my coach, Marcos Rodriguez, used to fight a lot of those guys, and he's beaten some of them,
Okay.
So he was like a legit,
How many
killer.
other kids are going to this class? When you show up, what's it like?
Oh, man, it was all adults. I was like the youngest guy in the group.
Really?
And they took me right in. They took me right in. They felt my pain, and like, no, let's get in here.
Because you were able to tell them what was going on?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I was up front. I said, this is what I want to do. And I told them how I got kicked out of the Taekwondo gym because, I was trying to, and right off the bat, man, we're doing circuit training. And that's how I always like doing my striking, how I teach striking to people, especially the MMA guys I train. That's how I started in Muay Thai. We did a lot of circuit training. If people don't know what circuit training is, it's kind of like, CrossFit and all that. You set a time, 3 minutes, 5 minutes. And let's say I'll make you hit pads for 3 minutes. Then you go hit the bag for 3 minutes. Then, you might do a little bit of shuttle boxing for 3 minutes or jump rope for 3 minutes. And we do that. That's a pretty standard type of training for any kind of...
pretty brutal. You're pretty tired at the end of that.
Oh, yeah. Yes, yeah. And the coach keep correcting your technique and very repetitive because you got to focus in repetitive striking because you got to build the muscle memory. Your body needs to be acclimated to that.
That's the thing that I did not know about fighting before I started coming into jiu-jitsu. Because, if I had gotten in fights as a kid, you don't do it often enough to be able to figure out there's a way that I can make my body move that no matter what, I'm in a better position than I was in if I didn't use these moves. Keep my hands in, keep my elbows in. Yeah. And all of that stuff, you can't read it in a book and do it. You have to do it over and over and over again. And you have to pay the price for keeping your arm out because then Elvin's going to grab it and put you in an arm lock and you're going to be like, ow, stop. And it's that repetitive, okay, I don't want to do that again, along with pain that teaches you. Yeah. And then you're doing this with Muay Thai. When do you start sparring?
Man, I would say within the first 2-3 months. Okay. My coach, Marcos, used to spar with me. It was light, of course. He didn't want to hurt me. But, I just remember how important, I remember him telling me this. It's very important if you want to learn how to defend yourself to understand how to take a punch, take a strike, a kick, and a punch. Because
you can change the way that you get hit so it doesn't hurt so bad?
It's not even that. It's just that, so I trained a lot of fighters before, right? And when my coach taught me that, those are one of the most valuable lessons I learned from him. He said a lot of people want to fight, but they don't know how to take a punch. They don't want to take a strike or a kick. They flinch, they freak out, they kind of panic. Oh, yeah. So to have that self-control, it's a challenge itself. And that's something really tough to teach somebody. Some people are fine. They're okay. They know how to take it,
But you have to want it because pain is coming and you're putting yourself in the way of that pain for hopes that it will teach you something in the future.
Yeah. And to be honest, to be able to learn how to take that punch and stay relaxed, okay, I'm going to go right back at the guy. That's like some serious stuff to learn right there, And if you learn how to do that, man, I would say that's 50% of the work you need to get done to get better.
So if somebody was on the street with you starting to get loud and they went to throw a punch, you wouldn't flinch in the same way that I would? Like I would
No,
flinch.
But I'll raise my hands, my palms facing him, saying like, I don't want to have problems. And, if you're in a street fight, you never want to keep your hands down because most people get caught by keeping your hands down. So especially when I teach self-defense to people, keep your hands up. Like, how the cops say, raise your hands up. So open your palms. That way it's not a threat. Don't make a fist because when you make a fist, people are going to take it as a threat. Open your hands up, show your palms to them, and then say, like this, and says, I don't want any problems. I'm very sorry. And take a step back.
Okay.
Because you want to be out of range.
And it's that sort of presence of mind you get when you're studying Muay Thai because now you're like, I can be present in this moment. Yeah. Instead of being afraid.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So he has you doing this for 3 months. You're getting ready to take a punch. Yeah. Now you go live with adults.
Yes. Yeah. There wasn't a whole lot of kids. I mean, there wasn't kids program. It's just these badass Muay Thai guys fighting fights every month, some Vale Tudo fights or some Muay Thai fights themselves, or they're doing like full contact 4-man tournaments, which that was vicious and nuts, And I even ended up doing some amateur ones myself.
So what are 4-man tournaments then?
So Brazil, as you know, soccer is the national sport, and they had organized cheering for the teams. So they have a place called Gaviões da Fiel, which they organized cheering, and they have a carnival club too for the team Corinthians, which is the big soccer team from São Paulo. And they used to host so they own this huge warehouse where they set up all the carnival, what do you call it?
just the
trams
festivities.
and
Yeah,
the
yeah,
festivities.
Yeah.
And so they used to lease that out for a lot of full contact fights in there. So I remember going there, and it literally felt like an underground thing. You know, I feel like when you watch these movies and, you know, these guys are fighting in the garage, or like Fight Club, you know. So these guys put this little ring. It's not even on the platform. It's flat out on the ground, and it has some ropes going around. And you got these teams coming in, you know, and then you'll bring 2-3 athletes, you know. You had the Chinese boxing guys and the full contact Kyokushin karate guys.
Oh, different styles of martial arts.
And we're doing kumite style fighting.
What is kumite style fighting?
Oh, you never heard the story about the Bloodsport? You never seen that movie with Van Damme?
Oh yeah.
So it's kind of like that, you know?
That's what you were how old were you? You were 14 years old?
14, 15 years old. I was going to watch at first, and then I participated once. You know, I went 1-1, but my matches were different. We were fully geared. I was a kid, of course. It was other kids.
Okay.
And we're just doing like 1 minute rounds.
But they're introducing you to this blood sport.
Yes, they were trying to ease my way in to become this, you know, vicious person, you know, but with self-control, you know, and awareness of what I'm doing, you know.
And so Muay Thai was good for you.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. You'd be surprised. Right after Muay Thai, I still had kids teasing me and bothering me, and I just kind of walked out. And man, at first, my parents thought that, oh no, this is going to promote more violence in my son. And man, I used to get off school. All my friends were the Muay Thai guys. You know, I used to get off school, go straight to the gym. And the gym was really cool because it was actually like a Gold's Gym type setup. You know, it had all weightlifting equipment, and they had different rooms. They had dancing, you know, they had, think about anything of an extracurricular activity they had there. You know, they also had judo, they had all jiu-jitsu, they had everything, you know?
Because this seems so foreign in the US, but I guess when you put it in the context of CrossFit or Orange Theory, only instead of doing that, there was also fighting.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Because a lot of people want to learn a skill. They want to get in shape and learn a skill at the same time. Great. Yeah. You can get in shape. I'm all for it. I love working out, you know? I'm very disciplined about the way I work out, but you know, it's a lot of people seek me out because they're bored. They're tired of just going to the Gold's Gym, and they want to learn a skill and get in shape at the same time.
I mean, you were describing exactly my path. I lifted for 4 years before I had the guts to go into the jiu-jitsu studio. And now I see I should have been doing them in tandem.
Yeah.
Why did I wait so long? I was afraid that I wasn't going to be strong enough or fit enough. But you're right. I had taken lifting to the point where I'm like, I'm not going to become a professional bodybuilder. Yeah. So what's the point of I'm not exercising so that I can exercise more. I'm doing it for some other reason. And that's what jiu-jitsu gave me.
Exercise because you like to exercise. Don't exercise because you want to be a bodybuilder. Then it's different. Then you find the goal. You know, the exercise will help you. You know, I do it all the time. You know.
So how long then did you do Muay Thai for?
Man, it felt like it was a long time, but it wasn't. You know, I got ranked to the red stripe, didn't do belts in Muay Thai. And so I say I probably started back in 92. And I had my first contact with jiu-jitsu in 94. And then my coach ended up retiring. And one of his right-hand man tried to take over, but he was also in the military. So he had a really hard time teaching. They closed down the program at that school, so I was going to the other guy to a Gracie Barra school in São Paulo. I was teaching Muay Thai there. They had an MMA. At the time it was Vale Tudo. It was no holds barred. So it was different.
This is before there was any UFC, any of that stuff. This is all the beginning of this.
This is the dawn of it, yes. You know, so I used to go there because he was trying to help this one guy for a fight, and I had no idea who he was fighting. Later on, I found out it was Vanderlei Silva from Shootbox. It was his very first fight.
Okay.
Yes.
So for people that don't have an understanding of this, Brazilian Jiu Jitsu hit the mainstream when they started holding these special UFC contests where the guys that knew jiu-jitsu would just wallop the hell out of boxers and karate and taekwondo and kickboxers. And the family that started that, or there are a few people that were doing Brazilian jiu-jitsu, but you mentioned the Gracies.
Yes.
That is a famous school of thought. Yes. And that's the thing that I didn't understand until I got into going to your gym. Mm-hmm. It's that the only way you can learn how to fight is if you study under somebody else.
Yes.
And that person has a mastery of it that is a way that they learned how to make their skill, their martial art, an actual art. So you are learning the ways of the master of that school. So it really is a school of thought. It's not like you can just go hand out curriculum and be like, hey, you guys teach these lessons. You have to be it's an apprenticing
It's
program.
a hands-on, yes, it's an apprenticeship, yes.
And so you were apprenticing at a Gracie facility. That seems like a big deal.
Well, let me tell you a little bit how my first contact with jiu-jitsu was. And so at first I thought, okay, just a bunch of dudes grabbing each other, you know? So I thought very low of it, you know, because I was saying, no, Muay Thai is the real deal. That stuff is ridiculous, you know, wrestling. I just saw that stuff was all ridiculous. And then I had a friend of mine, Fernando, and he was training jiu-jitsu. And then one day he came up, I forgot what it was. Maybe it was at the school I train at. And I decided, he says, hey, Mike, let's just roll. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Let's roll. And at the time, I was still doing
explain
Muay
what
Thai.
rolling is.
So rolling is like what we call when we wrestle each other in jiu-jitsu. We go the live training, you know, we just basically wrestle each other to the submission, you know.
Do anything you want. It's essentially like you're standing up. You two are both standing up. Now go.
Go. Yes. You do a takedown, you know, you pin the person down, you attack their arms, their neck, do all that, you know, take their back.
Fully live, all the way to the point when they say, I can't take anymore, and I tap out.
Yeah. And I'll never forget the first time I got submitted. You know, he called me in a guillotine choke. Okay. A guillotine choke is like him wrapping his arm around your neck, and he holds his hands together, and then he squeezes, you know, stopping the blood flow from your carotid artery going to your brain, you know? That's what most chokeholds work in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, it's not that you run out of air.
No,
it's that the circulation goes out and it's lights out.
Yes, it basically, you go out pretty fast. And I remember he actually jumped guard, and my face went straight on in the hard ground. There was no mats. So I remember, you know, seeing like a big light of flash when I hit my head on the ground. And then I didn't know what to do, you know, so I kind of like screamed. And he let go, and it's like, man, you need to tap. I'm like, you should have told me that. You know?
You didn't even know how to tell him stop.
No. It's like, this guy's gonna kill me. And then I was just thinking in my head, I'm like, this is nuts. You know, I'm like, what the hell just happened? You know, and I still kept rolling him. He called me one more guillotine, and he called me in a straight foot lock. Okay, it's basically a leg lock technique. It was the first. So those were the first 3 times I ever got tapped out. You know, and that was my first contact with jiu-jitsu. You know, and I lost contact with Fernando. He's a great guy, but he's the one that introduced me to jiu-jitsu, and I will always mention his name for the rest of my life.
As a white belt in your gym,
yes,
I know what it is like to be submitted and have that happen, but to imagine you, coach, being in a position where somebody could submit you 3 times in a row is mind-blowing to me, because we now have open mats where we'll come on Saturdays and everybody rolls with everybody. There are white belts there with other white belts, and we can go through the belt system in a little bit, but just as a matter of course, they get better and better. And I'll roll with black belts and they whip me, but there's something different about rolling with you. And like, you know, I would be ashamed to say it, other than the fact that I would challenge anyone else to roll with you. When I roll with you, you are so much more powerful and large than I am. And I'm a 210 pound, 6'4", 37-year-old man. But when I roll with you, I feel like I'm with my dad and I'm like 6 years old, because you have so much power in what you're doing that you let me get any position that I want, start, and then I can't submit you, and you can just kind of laugh as you roll me around. So the reason I'm going through all this explanation is, it is difficult for me to imagine you walking into a place and looking foolish at jiu-jitsu. But everyone that is an expert at it had the same experience that you did about just getting their ass handed to them.
That's how it goes. It's iron sharpens iron. There's no other way. If you go to, so if you do jiu-jitsu and you're listening to this, you always need to train with the people that kick your ass. There's no other way to be able to be that person, you know? So if you only train with the guys, you can, I can kind of go even with this guy. Good luck to you, buddy, to get good at it. You know, you have to put yourself through the grinder, you know? And
embarrass yourself and
it's kind of like that big fish in a small pond mentality. You can't have that in jiu-jitsu. In jiu-jitsu, it's an ocean, you know, and everybody's fending for themselves, you know? You want to be in the top of the food chain.
And it's incredible because size is not the determining factor in jiu-jitsu.
No, not at all. No.
And like you go in there, so there is a guy named Bart who's like a tall, skinny guy.
Okay, stop right there. You're talking about Dr. House, right?
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah.
And he will, so I'll be rolling with him and he will lay on his back, flip his legs over his head,
Yeah.
And so now I'm just fighting with his feet. And you would think, I'm a whip him, right? I'm just going to grab his feet and push him down or do whatever. No. Bart will grab you with his feet, use his arms to reach out and grab your ankles, and you're all done. And it doesn't matter that Bart is 35% less weight than I am.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
No, it doesn't. Yeah. That's how jiu-jitsu works, man.
And he got better because somebody else was whipping on him.
Yeah.
And somebody was whipping on them. So you start off, somebody has just crushed you in the jiu-jitsu studio.
Yeah.
What's your next step?
Well, I didn't thought much at first. And Marcão, that was his nickname, my Muay Thai coach, he got married and he decided to retire from Muay Thai. Vedas, he was off and on because he was fighting, so he didn't really dedicate to be coaching. And that's the thing too about mediating coaching with being a fighter. It's very hard,
Because they're focused on themselves, not on the students.
Yes. So, I mean, for anybody out there, if you want to be able to be a competitor, a fighter, and a coach at the same time, it's really hard because you're doing two different jobs. So I think that you got to give 100% when you do something. So right now I'm giving 100% to coaching, and I already did my 100% of the fighting. I'll still love to be able to compete someday again, but that's not on my agenda right now,
I mean, I see. So we have a guy in our gym right now, Orlando, Lando as we all call him, and he is going for it. Like he wants to be a warrior, a fighter.
Yes.
I see how exceptionally taxing that is, because every minute that you're not spending focused on getting better, you could be put in the ring with somebody that did spend that time.
Yes.
And they'll whip you.
Yes. And especially talking about the cage there. I mean, you got to think that like Orlando, that's what he does pretty much all the time. And he has ambition to be a top 10 UFC fighter eventually.
And I mean, it's not, so he isn't exceptionally athletic. I mean, he's like lean, fit, strong, but that is not enough. To like give you a path, even to be able to fight in a ring, right? Even to have anybody say, come on in here, you got to be good enough. And then you're constantly going up against better and better and better in order to get paid to do it. So you have this long walk of suffering while you're trying to become a professional fighter. So to try and be a coach at the same time would be very difficult.
Yeah, absolutely. It's borderline impossible, but I mean, I can still do a few maybe jiu-jitsu tournaments here and there, eventually when I feel 100%, but it's for me to compete at like a high level and to coach at the same time, I'm going to have to sacrifice something, So right now, I just want to really help people out.
So what was the coach like that now the Muay Thai guy has retired? So what happens then?
So it kind of worked out at the same time. So most of the jiu-jitsu came from Rio de Janeiro, and São Paulo didn't have a whole lot of jiu-jitsu at the time. But it kind of everything fell into place. Like I said, I had my first contact with my friend. And then as Marcão was retiring, my very first jiu-jitsu coach moved in and he actually started teaching there. His name was Alexandre Argolo. He was a brown belt under Master Carlson Gracie, And at the time, Alexandre was fighting Vale Tudo in São Paulo, So he was actually kind of cross-trained with us a little bit in Muay Thai. He was a very open-minded guy, and he understood that he needs to learn some striking as well, I mean, you got to think that MMA wasn't even a thing yet. It was more like style versus style back there,
Meaning the Taekwondo school would come up against the Jiu-Jitsu school or the other forms. Okay.
Exactly. So I used to, and then I remember go watch my coach fight. He did like a 4-man tournament too. He won. And that was just mind-boggling to me to see him going against these guys who look like physical specimens, and they do Muay Thai and stuff, and he just goes there and he clinches and takes them down, and he gets mount on them, start punching their face at will. They turn their back and he chokes them. That's a pretty standard way to beat somebody in jiu-jitsu right there, So that was the whole point. You get them out, you start hitting them in the face, get your hips a little loose, the guy turning belly down, you put that rear naked choke and chokes the guy out, So to me, that was fascinating how you could just, so now I can actually defend myself against one person attacking me and I don't have to really hurt him,
That's what you saw when you saw it.
Yes. And that was fascinating because
most people don't see that. They just see the struggle between two people. One person wins, one person loses.
Yes.
But you were sitting there being like, finally, I've been searching for this thing that will help me, and this is it.
Yeah. And on top of it, I used to go watch the big Vale Tudo tournaments. Vale Tudo translates everything goes, right? And in the United States at the time, it was called no holds barred fighting.
Yeah.
So like back in the first UFCs, when the guys weren't even wearing gloves, they were just bare knuckle fighting.
Right.
And they could even punch the groin and doing all that, knee to the head.
Ken Shamrock and
Ken Shamrock, the Shamrock brothers, the Lions Den, the Matt Hughes time. I think Matt Hughes actually came a little bit later.
Yeah, a little bit, but not much.
Yeah.
This is when you could only see it if you got the VHS tapes.
Yes.
And like somebody would get them a month or two after the thing came out. You'd get them at your movie store, watch the tapes.
No, but here's a fascinating thing, Vance. I believe you can still find on YouTube some of these. They used to have 16-man Vale Tudo tournaments. They all fought in one night, And there were straight up no holds barred fights. They're fighting in the ring. You can even, if the person had long hair, you could grab their hair and punch their face in if you wanted to, It was some savagery.
And so what is it like for you as a kid to be around such savagery?
I was fascinated because I was around these alpha males constantly. And I think that kind of guided me to be like that because, I had a pretty bad upbringing, childhood, and, I'm not, I think of myself when I was a kid, I think I was kind of a victim of circumstance. And I felt, as a kid, I realized I don't want to be a victim anymore. I want to be like these guys, because I could see these guys, all these guys, the fighters, everybody, they have control of what they're doing, They have fulfillment in their life and they have purpose, They're warriors, man. That's like the ultimate mentality for a male, I think, to have that,
And you were feeling like before you found this, you were looking at the world and saying it's not fair, it's not my fault.
Exactly. I was one of these pussy ass idiots feeling sorry for myself,
What drives that? Why is that the default state?
Oh man, I guess with my upbringing, childhood, I'd rather not really talk about that much. Love my parents, man. They did the best to raise me. But it's just like I felt like nobody really listened to me. And I have to do something for myself, So that's kind of like what I did. And like I said, when I was around these guys and I'm seeing all this, okay, this is kind of like what I want to do, And, when I see these 16-man Vale Tudo tournaments, man, I'll never forget this one guy, okay? The guy was really skinny, like Bart, okay? Maybe a little more muscular and more fit than Bart. And I remember this guy. He took a beating every single one of the fights. And every single one of his fights, he won with a triangle choke.
Oh. And a triangle choke is where you wrap your leg around the back of the neck, the same way that the guillotine cuts off your circulation when you're doing it with your legs. So the power is infinitely more, it feels
exactly. And that completely blew my mind. And there wasn't I think there was weight categories on those Vale Tudo tournaments, but I think it were 20-pound increments. So this guy, I don't know, he maybe was fighting from 160 to 180 pound division. And he's probably like soaking wet 160.
Okay.
And he's fighting these guys. These guys are like manhandling him, but he goes to his back and he gets a triangle, So I remember looking at his face in the end. I actually went down the stands and I saw it. I'm like, man, he's beat up, but he's a champion, And at the time, they were just giving these guys a trophy, man, and maybe give them a check for maybe $1,000 for winning the whole thing,
Going through a hell of a beating for $1,000.
Exactly, and it was style versus style. They'll make sure on that 16-man tournament there was a karate champion, a capoeira champion, hapkido, and so on, all these different styles. And I would say, and this is a pretty conservative number, I would say 80 to 85% of the fights were won by the jiu-jitsu guys. Wow. Yes. It's a lot of times even the black belt, you see brown belts, even purple belts fighting, I remember
you've talked about the belt system. Why don't you explain how does the belt system work in martial arts in general, but in jiu-jitsu specifically?
Okay, so the belt system basically it takes the skill level of the student. At least in jiu-jitsu, that's how we determine the skill level, But I can't speak for a lot of the other schools and the other coaches. People have their own systems and how they approach, how they teach and rank the students. But like I said, I come from that era, and jiu-jitsu for me is a form of combat. Yeah, I love all jiu-jitsu. I love the sports side of it. I love doing all of it. But I believe that when I teach you, Vance, you need to learn how to defend yourself. You need to learn how to be a fighter, a warrior. So I make sure that when I rank people is based off of if they can defend themselves or not, especially the very first rank, which is the first rank for an adult, the blue belt, right? There are 4 stripes between each ranks. Some coaches do stripes, some coaches don't. I like it because I think the student can kind of know he's progressing. So I'll say average is maybe 1 or 2 stripes a year, and average about 2 to 3 years per rank. So that's kind of like our average out.
And so just to explain,
yes.
You have the white belt when people walk in,
yes.
And then when you, like you described, when you know how to defend yourself, now you're a blue belt.
Yes.
But that is just the very beginning. Now, if a white belt goes against a blue belt, you have almost no chance of beating the blue belt.
In my schools, yes.
Yeah. Like, I mean, yeah.
There is an exception. Okay. So if you get like a phenomenal wrestler, for example, has a good base, you're not going to be able to submit him real well. I can see him smashing a lot of blue belts, It just happened at ADCC a couple weeks ago.
Well, but for the most part, at least my experience has been, if I walk in there, I'm not assuming that I'm going to lose to the blue belt, but I know that I'm about to get a lesson in what not to do.
Exactly.
And then from blue belt, it goes up to purple belt.
Yes. And that's the mid-level rank.
Right.
I call that, I tell everybody, every time I get somebody a purple belt, I look at the person in the eye, says, you better not fucking quit on me right now. Because to me, it's the belt of point of no return.
Really?
Yes.
So explain that.
The purple belt is when you start to achieve the high level. It's a transition from the low level student to the high level student. So I honestly think the purple belt is the most important belt in jiu-jitsu, because that belt's going to dictate if you're going to become a black belt or not. Most people quit at white and blue, and that's pretty sure about that, as my experience as a coach. And I'm sure that if you look online, there's a lot of memes and jokes about that too,
Right.
But for some people, they just want to be proficient and they quit. I understand that,
And purple belt is enough that, so the guy that I see at one of your gyms, I go on Wednesday night, guy named Steve, he has a purple belt.
Yes.
And it feels as though there's nothing I can do to him. It's like when you get to purple belt, that's when you're a magician, and now you can do magical things.
Yes.
And it doesn't matter like what position you start in, the purple belt is going to win, and he's gonna have fun doing it.
Yes, that's exactly how it is. The purple belts are like, okay, this guy can actually give me a tussle, even though they talk about my level. Okay, the purple belt can present some challenge to me now, and so he's ready for that rank.
Okay.
And I believe, and then the other ranks, the brown and the black, they're just basically, these guys are pro belts and they're training hard and they're coming through. So now he's a brown belt. And then later on, he's actually, so the black belt is more like, to me, it's more like, is this person responsible enough to carry the black belt and represent my lineage, where I came from,
So is that the way that somebody describes their black belt? I got a Mike Rethmeyer black belt.
Yeah. The lineage in jiu-jitsu is huge because it comes back from the traditional background from from feudal Japan and, the feudal class and
and all that. So we should go back to where we left the story off then. So you now encounter jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
What is the name of the school of thought that you get underneath and take your path up to purple and then later black belt?
Okay, so I started with Alexandre, and man, he's also an awesome coach. So I lost this one awesome coach and another one came in. And he's the same age as Marcon was. He was just dedicated, has so much discipline, his diet, his exercise regimen, his wife was also a trainer and she was a yoga teacher. And then we did yoga with her. I mean, I remember everything. I loved everything about it. And I remember he took me to my very first jiu-jitsu tournament in 1994 in Osasco, outside of São Paulo, which is like in the outskirts of São Paulo. I had no expectations. I was like 14 years old and I was a big, strong kid. And then I always tell that to people too. I like to tell that to the white belts. I can never learn do a triangle from my back. I had such a hard time. It took me 7 months to learn how to do a triangle. But I pick up the Kimura lock really fast. The Kimura lock is like a submission that I tell the kids called chicken wing. So you turn the person guy's chicken wing and you bend his hand behind his back. The famous Kimura lock. I told, hey, what do I do? He says, dude, pull guard, go for the Kimura. So I had 4 matches. I pulled.
Pulling guard means you pull the person on top of you. You wrap your legs around them. So somebody that doesn't know about fighting, they may think, I'm in charge now because this guy's on his back and I'm on top of him.
Yeah.
But when you know what you're doing, all of a sudden you're like, from here, I can take your arm and wrap it behind your back.
Yes.
And there's very little you can do to stop it unless somebody's taught you how to stop it.
Yes. And exactly. Jiu-jitsu is unique because you can fight from your back, they call the guard position, In theory, the guard position is a defensive position. You really want to be on top of somebody for an altercation, but you can also play strategy when you compete by pulling guard. So my strategy was very simple, very basic, and that's kind of like what I'll be telling you if you do a tournament. Pull guard, attack your favorite submission or your favorite sweep. Sweep is a reversal technique. So I pull guard and I went for Kimura. 4 matches, 4 Kimuras.
Wow.
My final match was a black belt in judo. But I stuck to my guns and I went for it. And then after that day, I got my little medal. And I told myself, this is what I want to do for a living. Back in 1994, I already knew what I was going to do.
How old were you?
14, 15 years old. I can't remember exactly.
And was this after you had been in the fight with the kid and you're now you've got these problems at school. Yeah. So who are you becoming when you're in the regular world?
No, I went to a different school after that.
Okay.
Yes. They transferred. I just quit that school. They didn't even kick me out because they knew what the circumstances were. And then, no, at that point, man, my life was complete. I was in control of what I was doing. I had purpose. I knew what I wanted to do.
That is profound. I wonder if most people ever have that sense of being able to say my life was complete.
Yes. I knew what I was going to do. Nothing became very relevant to me, and the point that even like if I date a girl or something, I just like, sorry, I got to do jiu-jitsu. I can't see you tonight. So that's how it was, so that was like what I basically, live for.
I think that that's something about discipline that most people don't understand.
Yeah.
Is that once you get to a place where you see what this sacrifice is that you're making for what, you have a thing that you're going for.
Yeah.
The sacrifice is no longer that difficult. Like as soon as you can give up the fact that like, oh, it's hard that I don't get to see my girlfriend because your eye is up on, because I want to become a champion or I want to get, then going out and running is not a punishment. It's getting you a step further up that mountain. Lifting weights is no longer like, oh, I got to go do this. It's one step closer.
Absolutely. So I'm a very goal-driven person. So I'm always looking for a different goal to do. And when I fulfill that goal, okay, what do I do now? And that's how I was since then, So I told myself, okay, my goal is to do this. So I was striving to get good at it. So I'll ask my coach, what do I need to do to get better? Oh, you need to do this, this, and this. So you need to run. You need to lift weights. You need to do, at least 12 hours of jiu-jitsu training every week. So I was doing everything. So I was doing everything, and
12 hours of jiu-jitsu training, just so somebody, it's not like, hey, I'm getting in the pool and I'm swimming back and forth for 12 hours.
Yeah.
This is, I'm going to learn a technique. I'm going to do it 50 times, then let somebody do it 50 times to me, switch back, do this over and over again. And then at the end of the training, we're going to go live and roll as hard as we can against one another. That is intense. 12 hours a week would be a brutal force on your body.
Yes, it would. I mean, if you can moderate it right, and if you know how to use jiu-jitsu properly, you're never going to get tired or hurt, So that's the thing. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah, I'm not there yet. If I did 12 hours
at one point, you can start on how to roll, and you're not gonna even get that. You're gonna get that tired. Your just body get well acclimated to it. So back to what you were saying earlier about like you thought about lifting weights and getting strong and physically more fit before you start jiu-jitsu. Man, I seen people. I remember back when I moved to the US and I was training with my coach here for a while. I remember this guy that came and trained with us. He was in the top 50 of the Ironman. And the guy was dying doing jiu-jitsu with us, So it's a different type of fitness, So you can go run, you can go lift weights, you can do CrossFit, you come to jiu-jitsu, you're still going to die. You know?
And I think one of the pieces of advice, so when we're rolling, the thing that you're always saying to me is, quit holding your breath.
Yes.
Quit holding your breath.
Yes.
Which is one of those things that I've only just now begun to do that.
Yeah.
But that took me 6 months of rolling. I don't know. I'm probably about 4 or 5 hours a week. And I still want to grab onto your collar and hold my breath as I pull it to the side.
And as your coach, when I'm training with you, I'll tell you that. I see that. I'm like, okay, try to relax. I'm gonna try to help you out right now.
And that's what you can't see when you've never rolled, you've never done jiu-jitsu. You don't know that there are some people there that they're not. It's like swimming or drowning, right?
Yeah.
Like when you first get there, all you can do is flail around with your arms in the air, and you don't know how to hold your body so it'll float, and so you're gasping for air. But once you know how to tread water, you're fine.
Absolutely.
It's not that big of a deal.
Yeah, that's exactly how it works. getting acclimated. So it's beyond just teaching you technique or a fancy technique or you getting a DVD of some super grappler and learning the stuff. Great. You want to do that? Be good at it. You know, there are hundreds of jiu-jitsu techniques out there, styles and strategies, types, but it only boils down to you setting up a handful of moves for you to be good at, you know?
And so how long did it take you to go from white belt, you know, I got my ass kicked, but now I'm going to start walking in here and do this, to getting your blue belt? What was that part of your journey? Because I'm in that right now, and I'm fine with it. I'm in no hurry, but it does feel like I'm crossing the Sahara barefoot.
Yeah. So here's the best thing, Vance. This is probably the best advice I can give you and anybody listening to this podcast, man. Just enjoy the journey. Jiu-jitsu is a journey. It's not a sprint, you know? And try to learn one thing at a time. So when I see, so we talked about Bart earlier, right? Dr. House, right? So Bart was the fastest purple belt ever promoted. I believe Bart went from blue to purple within a year and a half. Why? Because he listened to what I told him. I says, pick a few moves and get good at them. Next thing, he's doing that. I watch him roll the students. He's doing that. He's going against me. He does it. He goes to the tournament, submits everybody, like doing a triangle, pulling guard, and going for a spider guard, you know? So I'm like, he's getting jiu-jitsu. So he's ready for that. I think he achieved the mid-level rank pretty fast, you know? So now it's a part of him transitioning to that, getting that confidence, that getting that responsibility. And okay, for those who don't know that, Bart lives in Carlisle, Illinois, and he drives all the way to Belleville, Illinois to train with me. You know, so
how long of a drive is that?
Man, I would say well over an hour.
Whoa.
Yes, I'll say hour 15, hour 20 minutes.
Dedication.
Yes, and he would also drive to the other school in Telegraph. You know, so to me, I can tell that he really wants to do this. You know, and so I'm also pay attention on that. So if I see the person is very dedicated like him, the ranking will come faster. I'm not so concerned about them winning tournaments. I just want to make sure two main factors is, if they're getting proficient at the techniques they're building their game, their core techniques, and their dedication level. You know, if I see the student once a week or so, it's fine. But, you know, you're going to progress a little bit slower. But Bart is, even though he's telling me he's doing this huge job right now, you know, and I'm just thinking in my head, man, he's got a wife, he's got kids, you know, and he's the kind of guy, he doesn't give me any excuses. He's there. If I go there tonight, he's going to be there.
I think that's another interesting difference between weightlifting or running, which I do both of those, and jiu-jitsu is when you go to jiu-jitsu, there is a sort of cleansing of your mind, because whatever you were thinking about when you came in, no matter how hard your work was, no matter what's going on with your family, you go in there and you can still have it on your mind until you start rolling. Mm-hmm. And then if you're not thinking about the guy you're rolling with right there in the present moment, you're going to get choked. Yeah. And so it's 100% focus, and that washes everything out. And so then when you leave there, I have a level of tranquility about like, what are my actual problems? What are the things I actually need to be focused on? Yeah. It makes me so much more present in the moment. Yep. Because I was there kind of on that edge of chaos where you're fighting and getting better.
Exactly. It gives you self-control. It gives you, what do you call it? It gives you peace, you know, like the shirt here, you know? Yeah.
Oh, hey, there you go. War and Peace in Jiu-Jitsu.
There you go.
When you were enjoying the journey, when you were a white belt, this is something you knew instinctively? Hey, I'm just on the journey? Or you had a goal and so you became relentless, or how does this work?
No, man, I just took a step at a time. I never, you know, one of my good friends too here in the U.S., you know, when I trained with my former coach, when I moved here, he told me something that stuck with me, and I tell that to people all the time. It's probably one of the best things I ever heard from one of my teammates. It says, train with no expectations. Don't have any expectations, and then you'll be fine. You know, the moment you put expectations, you know, or you know, it makes everything very difficult, you know? It makes you get disappointed, you know?
And that's an interesting thing because when you're a kid, I remember when people would be like, your life will be a lot better if you don't expect very much from other people. And I was always like, well, then you're not setting yourself, your sights high enough. But in jiu-jitsu, I think the reason that that's so true is if you have expectations, you are not in the moment. Yes. And the only way to do jiu-jitsu is in the present moment. Doesn't matter what happened. Doesn't matter what's going to happen. Yeah. It's what is going on right now.
Yes. I recently just had these two awful hip surgeries, right? I had to replace both my hips, you know, throughout.
Do you think because of jiu-jitsu?
Part of it, the doctors told me it had to be genetics. I mean, it had to be arthritis passed on, But I'm not gonna lie, I was depressed, man. I was miserable and a lot of pain. And it was hard for me. It was hard for my family to see that, hard for my students, because a lot of times I couldn't even do things. And
when did it happen? When did you start having enough pain that you had to go to a surgery?
Okay, so it started back. I had a staph infection on my groin back in 2015, around this time, around September.
Really?
2015, yes. September, October. And I didn't pay much attention to it. I thought I had the flu, so I was having this high fever. It took me a few days to get to the hospital. When I got to the hospital, I was almost dying. I was already septic.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, so I had a 50-50 chance to live. And
I didn't know that.
I remember it was pretty bad. I mean, and I remember them isolating me in a room. And I remember these people wearing like masks and hazmat suits and those big face masks, those surgery face masks. And I remember they start, I guess, pumping me with antibiotics. And I remember everything just going blurred.
Wait, was this not very long ago?
Yeah, it was 2015.
You have kids?
Yes.
So you literally thought you could die, and
Yes.
you had kids?
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah. And I mean, I was just such an idiot. I thought I only had the flu, man, because I was having these symptoms, and I was the kind of person I suck up everything, but I learned my lesson, the hard way. So I call my doctor, he's my friend, and I says, "Hey doc, this is what's going on." And he's like, "Get your ass to St. Luke's emergency room right now." And I'm like, all right. So my wife drove me there. She dropped me off. She still had to go back to pick up the kids. We didn't thought it was nothing bad. I says, okay, he's just going to give me
some antibiotics and then I'll be on my way.
No, yeah. Man, these people are all like, you can tell all the nurse staff got quiet. There was nothing going on in the ER. And everything just got quiet. People start walking away and calling. And I see these people putting gloves and, their little jumpsuits.
You're all of a sudden become the virus. Like they're afraid of you.
Yeah. So honestly, man, I kind of blurred it out for a few days because they kept pumping me with antibiotics and that infection's all over my body. And the worst part wasn't even that. The worst part is the infection spread out to my scrotum. And my scrotum was in excruciating pain and it became the size of a grapefruit.
Wow.
It was really bad,
Brother, I can relate.
Yes.
When I got poison ivy, so I'm allergic to mangoes and I didn't know it. So I was eating essentially poison ivy and it went everywhere too. And like the ability to explain to another person how much pain that is impossible.
Oh, so you know it. But anyway, I was hospitalized for a few days. Went back home. I think that whole infection.
How did you get okay? They start pumping you with drugs?
Yeah, they pump me with drugs. I mean, I guess doxycycline and all that good stuff, and they sent me home and I guess I drained for a few days, man. I was wiped out. I felt like crap for like 2-3 months, it was horrible. And after that, my hip pain started like getting worse. But so I had this big relapse, right? I was actually really overweight and I was like in a really bad spot in my life, I think at the time, because I was trying to please everybody, and I forgot about myself. I was pretty overweight. I think I was up to 309 at the time, and I didn't care about anything. And I think when that happened, it was a good thing because then it drove me to appreciate more things in life, to respect life more, and to take care of myself. So what did I do in 2016? I said, you know what, screw this, man. I almost died. I'm going to go ahead and train a little more, compete a little more now,
Oh, really?
Yes.
Made you go harder.
Yes. So 2016, I won, oh man, let me think. 1, 2, 3, I'd say about 7 gold medals and a bronze in the World Championship, Black Belt Master 1,
I've never heard that before. I didn't know that.
I won the Pan Ams, the Nogi Pan Ams, that year at Master 1, which is like, let me just clarify that, from 30 to 35 years old, I was, at the time, I was already like 37. So I went to division age below to do it. And then I won the International Open in Chicago. I won my division, Open class in gi. They go there in the summer and then they go in the winter. So I went there and I won both of them,
So you went from hospitalized, you might die, staph infection to I'm going to now get to the highest echelons of this martial art.
Because this is how my stubborn ass works. I'm like, you know what, man, I feel like I'm not going to do well now. And then I went and I trained hard and I competed and I did all that stuff. Just training with my students, I didn't train with some top-notch guys or anything like that. And then even the local guys around here, they're pretty good.
But that's an interesting thing because you have your own school of thought. You have guys that you've trained.
Yeah.
So now you're sharpening your iron on iron you sharpen.
Yes. But on the downside, that's when my hips start acting up. Because I think that, okay, this is just what I think. That infection spread out through my hips. And what the doctors explained to me, I guess some people, when they injure their joints, their joints build collagen to protect itself. My joints is really good about building calcium. So, me and the doctor made a joke. We talk about that. I don't have to worry about osteoporosis because I have strong calcium formations in my bones, So the doctor said, yeah, man, most likely that infection really kind of like attacked your hips a lot. And that was part of the defense that your hips had, But, that's kind of like theoretical what we're talking about. But I think that played a big impact because then instead of me like doing proper rehab, I just went head on training and competing, and I achieve all these titles again, which I already won so much stuff in the past.
You had won things like that before.
Yes. Yeah.
What have you won? You never talk about
I don't like to talk
things.
about that stuff, man, because I do it for myself, I'm not the kind of person I'm going to brag about any that kind of stuff. I just
I mean, when I made the Jackie Joyner Kersey reference, I was being hyperbolic, but I didn't realize. So talk about that. What champion level? You're a Brazilian kid doing jiu-jitsu at 14 to now what level do you get to?
At one point in the Midwest, I was ranked number 1. I got back in the early 2000s. I was doing all the tournaments around the Midwest, even though St. Louis had no tournaments, And it was me, the guys from Chicago. There was a bunch of guys from Ohio, we're all like, we all became friends too, if you guys are listening to that, man, miss all you guys, And, sometimes there'd be people come from Brazil. There's people from Florida, So there wasn't a whole lot in the United States back in the early 2000s. So I used to compete in a lot of the grappling tournaments. And I made a small name for myself. I wasn't like a big Hoist Gracie guy. But, I like to compete a little bit. And I earned respect from people, And that's what it was for me. A lot of times for me just to earn respect because I felt so disrespected throughout my whole life, And I felt like when I won the title, it was basically like I accomplished a goal, But I also like losing, man. Believe it or not. I love losing matches because then it gives me more of a goal-driven.
You found what your limit was.
Yes. I'm like, okay, I need to train. What did I did wrong? What do I need to fix now? So I think even in jiu-jitsu, losing is actually pretty cool.
Going back to your thing about respect.
Yeah.
I don't know how to say this without it getting a little bit awkward, but I just want to say it. Like when I walk into that gym, everyone respects you.
I know.
And these are the toughest freaking guys I've ever met. And I've worked on ships. I've worked for paving companies.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been in the shit and I've never known a tougher ragtag group of people.
Yeah.
And everybody there is like, hey coach, what do you have to teach me? Hey coach, this is what's going on in my life.
Yeah.
How did you get to the point where you went from being the kid that felt never being respected or listened to having a gym where people are proud to be a part of your school?
Mm-hmm. Well, Vance, it all boils down to the one thing, man. Be passionate about what you do. I'm really passionate about what I do, man. So I think everything is just a consequence of my passion, And, I have some of the students recently, they are telling me, oh, coach, what do I need to do to get a sponsorship to compete? Or what do I have to do to have my own club one day? I says, man, just be passionate, man. But you gotta chase it, Like when I moved here, I want to compete. I remember I took, when I was 21 years old.
What brought you to the United States? Why did you come here?
Well, I graduated high school in Brazil, debating about going to college there and coming up here. My dad, he was doing private security on the side from his job, and he met the Bush family, the Anheuser-Busch family, and they offered him a job. So I knew he's going to move up here.
That's what brought you to St. Louis.
Yes. My mom, my dad is from Kirkwood. He was born and raised here.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So it was kind of like a big coincidence. At the same time, my mom moved across the country in Brazil, and I didn't want to move with her. And, and I didn't know what I was going to do with my life. I was kind of lost at the time because I knew they were going to leave. I didn't want to go. At the time, too, my jiu-jitsu coach, Alexandre, he moved south. He got a better job offer. He left. So I had a period of time there. I stopped doing jiu-jitsu, So I stopped for, I don't know, maybe a year or so because it was like a turbulent time for me. So I knew my dad was going to move here, so I decided to come up first, and I moved in with my grandfather. He passed a few years ago, and great guy. in here in North County in Overland, in St. Louis. And from there, I still had to work for a while, and I wasn't even training. And later on, I found...
What were you doing for work here in the U.S.?
Just whatever I could find. I mean, my grandma, she had me do some side jobs with her. She cleaned homes, so I used to go do landscaping and, just side work like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I did a little bit of construction here and there, So I liked it. I don't mind doing hard work, man. Hard work, I think it's... Working with your hands is very important. I think it defines a person. It defines a man, So I like doing that, And then later on, my father moved out here, and then I went to go live with him. Got a job. My first real quote-unquote job was actually working at Walmart overnight, so unloading trucks.
Really?
I loved it. Yeah, so it was awesome. And they loved me because I love doing it. So they threw me inside that 18-wheeler trailer. And I used to pick up those boxes and load in the conveyor belt all night long.
Was it because it was like weightlifting for you?
Yeah, I loved it, man. It was a workout. I love working out, and then why not?
That's the exact right thing, right? If you can turn your burden into a joy, you don't have to suffer under it anymore.
Yeah.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah. So for a full year, I worked for them. I used to volunteer for shifts too. I used to do everything. I didn't mind, man. I love working. It was fun. If you work and you have fun, why not? You know? And then I saved enough to buy a vehicle. I bought my first vehicle, and then I started training with a coach that I hired in St. Louis at the time. He was under Rickson Gracie himself, and I was very fortunate to have him here at the time, back in 2000. So I stopped training, I guess, from, say, I graduated in 98. And I still kept off and on training. My coach moved. So I had different coaches I trained with for a little bit. And for a while, I trained with this coach here, this coach there. But everything was far. And at the time, too, I was also working for my great aunt. And then...
So when you come to the U.S. and you start training jiu-jitsu here, what's your belt? What belt do you have?
I was a blue belt.
You're a blue belt?
Alexandre gave me my blue belt, yes.
So I can defend myself, but I'm not a wizard yet.
I was a 2-stripe blue belt, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And... I tore up my knee too. So I had to get a surgery, so that put me out. So I tore up the other knee the next year, had to put myself out. But I remember I was training with my coach when I moved here. And okay, so I'm not gonna mention names because
that's good. Yeah.
Some people don't want me to mention some names, so I'd rather not. But okay, so I had this. So the group was just like you described my school, right? It's like these tough guys training. I got there and it was like that. And I remember when I got there, I started training there in 2000, and they had a solid, tough group of guys there fighting MMA and jiu-jitsu and winning everything. And man, we were like the Reapers here in the Midwest. So the school is really tough, The coach was like way more tougher than my coach I had in Brazil. He was from Rio too. He learned directly under Rickson Gracie. And he was like, I don't know, man, think about like, we're like an army of like warriors, and we're just constantly like fighting in the gym and
so you like the toughness of your coach.
Yeah.
You're saying like, hey, this was a step up. Because this guy if we're going to go down to the dungeon, let's go down there and get hard.
Yes. So jiu-jitsu fighters are known as the pit bulls of jiu-jitsu. Martial arts, I'm sorry. The pit bulls of martial arts. Meaning that we're the fighting dogs, and we have tenacity and we're smaller. We're not a big German Shepherd, but we're going to fuck that German Shepherd up.
Yeah.
So that's how we were known as, But I also believe that you need to be respectful and, so out of subject a little bit, this tattoo here.
Yeah, I can see it.
It means Bushido, okay? Bushido is the way of the warrior, it's the code of the samurai, okay? Did you ever heard about that?
Of 10, like just from above, yeah.
So the samurai was in the warrior class in feudal Japan, and they live and die by this code, okay? The code is based off in 7 virtues, okay? Integrity, respect, honor, duty, compassion, honesty, and let me see the last one, courage, So that's kind of like how I live, man, So I think when I trained at that gym, I always had the back of my head, and some of those guys were more like, we're fighters, we're not going to follow martial art code of conduct,
Oh. So they're a little too tough.
They're a little too tough, and I feel like there's a lot of lack of respect, through a lot of the times there, But regardless, I look up to everybody, man. Those guys are all warriors, and I know how to see a situation, good or bad, and take the best out of it. So, I always look up to those guys, man. One guy particularly I was training with one time, I'll never forget this. So my coach used to sit by the clock, and it used to be this little, he used to, the timer, and he used to put the timer back. We're rolling, putting the timer back. So we kept rolling. I remember I rolled this guy for about 12 minutes.
And like, to put it in perspective, 5 minutes is a long roll.
Yes. And I was young still. I was like, this is 2000, so I was like 19, 20 years old. This guy was a little older than me, and he was a really tough wrestler. He's like 3-time Missouri State champion, JUCO champion, so MMA fighter, winning everything. So he pins me down on side control, but then he doesn't do anything. He just holds me down for like 10 minutes. And I remember, okay, cool, you won. Back then, there was not a whole lot of stalling rules in jiu-jitsu, okay? Nowadays, you can't do that. You cannot hold position for more than 20 seconds. You get a stalling call, which I think is great, It promotes movement and it promotes...
trying things, going for things.
Yes. So I remember the time we ran up, and I was trying to be respectful. I look at him and says, man, why don't you try something? You just held me down for like 10 minutes. He looked at me and was like, I won, didn't I? So at the time, this particular person, he actually took like third or second at the Pan Ams. And that was a big deal. The Worlds wasn't even coming to the United States yet. The Worlds was back in Brazil. The Pan Ams was the big tournament here in the United States. And Americans to get placed on that, it was very hard. It was.
So he's a badass.
Yes, he is a badass. So I'm like, okay, I'm not going to argue, So I quote to my coach, says, hey, man, why don't you, with all due respect, why don't you tell him to like try something else? Because we just wasted 10 minutes training there, And he's like, and then my coach told me like, well, you just met on the Pan Am, so what am I going to tell him? So he has a valid point, but that drove me to be better than him.
That's right, because then you can tell him what to do.
Well, guess what? Next year, I was only training there for about less than a year. I went to the Pan Ams and I took silver medal on the division above his, and he only scored points on people. I submitted like half of my opponents, And
iron on iron. Your knife got sharper.
Yeah, so I really appreciate those guys, man. You have no idea how much I appreciate, because they drove me to be where I'm at. I need that drive. I need that challenge. I need people to doubt me. I love being the underdog, man. I love people challenge me and doubting me, and that always going to drive me.
That seems to be the thing that you have turned into, which I think is an important thing to articulate. It's all of these things that could be burdens on you, things that you could have to carry like a cross, that you've instead turned into something that made you stronger.
Yes.
And that's a mentality. And I think that, there's a concept called slaying dragons, right? Like a dragon represents all that you fear.
Yeah.
But if you don't look at the dragon, then you can't fight it. And the reason you would fight it is because there's gold down there. Dragons have gold. So let's go after the dragon and kill it. And one of the things that it sounds like you do extraordinarily well is, instead of hating the journey to go kill that dragon, you find a way to be like, hey, this is cool. I'm adding this on.
Yeah.
And I think that's contagious.
Yeah.
I think when you get around other people that have that mentality, you stop looking at, there's no point when anybody's going to give you sympathy because things aren't going your way, because you didn't get the job that you were hoping for, because you didn't, they'll listen to you, but we're here to strengthen iron here. Like this is not, we're not messing around.
Yes. Yeah. But like I said, I try really hard, Vance, to make sure everybody has a good time, and also becoming super tough, Yeah.
So in my class, so for me, when you're just training, when you're a white belt, you often train mostly with white belts. You don't only train with white belts, but within that white belt, there are some people that are brand new, so you can really run the table on them. Then there's people that have been there in their 4th stripe or 3rd stripe, and they're a lot better than you when you're just starting out, but they're not so good that it's not helpful to them. And the camaraderie that I have with the guys on Wednesday night, there's, AJ and Almir and Lucas and Big John and Rob, like, you develop a bond with them that I see guys that I don't see just anywhere, and give a man a hug while I'm walking in from the parking lot. Right. Exactly. And then you're going to go. And that's the thing that your gym really has, which is, how do we have this interaction of two people trying to choke each other? And then when they get done, they say, you're like me. And how do I know you're like me? Is because you're willing to get in here and fight for the choke.
It's funny you say that, because I'm so social with all the students, and a lot of times when I'm outside of my element, if I go to a function or something with my wife, I'm the quiet guy.
Are you really?
Yeah, because a lot of times, people don't understand me, man. I think that's part of the problem, A lot of people think I'm crazy for doing what I do and destroying my body. They don't look at it my point of view, So to me, it's like, man, I don't have anything in common with this person. Do I have to say anything to them? And I've always been a very observant person, so I like to observe people, and then I'll do a small talk here and there, But like you said, you're talking about how people don't understand jiu-jitsu and they think it's like karate and stuff, It's
And you do find that being like an obnoxious conversation.
Yeah,
I love talking and I can explain stuff, but you're totally right about I don't want to have the conversation for the 1,000th time about what is jiu-jitsu, because people do look at you like you're crazy. Vance, you're 37 years old. You're a professional. You stand up in suits.
Yeah.
Why is it that you then go put on your little outfit and go roll?
Yeah.
But you cannot experience that level of intensity any other way. Maybe other people that are doing skiing, or I would describe surfing to be really
extreme
similar.
Sports, yes.
Like anything, and I would even say something like chess. Anything that requires 100% of your focus, that's what jiu-jitsu is, only it's like full physical. And that's something that's so lacking. It was lacking in my life. I did not realize how much purpose and meaning could come from this struggle to try and learn how to get better at something.
Vance, aren't you afraid how society is turning into nowadays, man? How, I guess people don't have any ambition, their ambition is driven by, you grow up, you go to school, you graduate, you get a job, you work until 65 years old, then you retire and then you die when you're 72. That's scary, man.
I think people were sold on this fairy tale of when you finally get to your job or your wife or your kids, that then then you'll be happy. And like what people realize as they start getting success is this success, the only thing it did was teach me what did I have to do to get here. It doesn't make me happy. I have to, in order to be happy, I have to still be progressing towards something else.
Absolutely.
And I think those people that think I need to relax or I want to have more time off, those are the people that end up feeling meaningless because they don't have something that they're pushing towards.
Yeah. It's like, when people contact me about joining the school, man, I try to be very upfront with them and tell them how things are done. I explain to them that this is not an overnight gig. It's not the instant gratification. It's not going to be like everybody's going to get a first place medal or your belt's going to come in within 6 months because you're going to pay me, an additional $500 for your belt, which quote unquote, a lot of martial art gyms do that kind of stuff.
Do they?
Yes.
I only have experience of yours, so I don't really know.
So a lot of people will sell the belts out. To me, the belt is meaningless if you don't have the skill. I used to do
because you could go out and buy yourself a black belt and wear it around if you wanted to, but it doesn't mean anything.
There's this really funny video that all the jiu community ridiculizes. This one guy.
We'll put it up. So we'll put it right here as your. So tell me what. So
there's a guy. Like. I'm sure a lot of people listening to this, they know what I'm talking about. There's a guy that he puts a brown belt on his own waist. Yes, and he says, "And no man will ever put a belt on me." And I'm like, great, good for you, man. But the point is, you want to make sure that when you're a brown belt, you got to be up to par with the other brown belts out there. It's like you just told me, like, I don't see anybody really like beating you up anymore.
Right.
I can probably go with any black belt out there, and I'm not going to say I'm going to beat them or they might beat me, but I'll be able to give them a challenge.
Right. Right.
So that's where you should be at. I don't expect you to be the world champion, the top tier, the 1% guy winning everything. But I want to make sure you're tough enough to present challenge, man.
Well, and that goes exactly to what you were saying about the purposelessness of people, right? If you don't have something where you get to take your full self and put it all the way in, then you don't really know what you're capable of.
No.
And it doesn't have to be jiu-jitsu. It's not for everybody, right? But like that's the cool thing about it is that like if I go into a meeting, right, and I want to disagree with somebody in an argument, if I just blast them out, if I just roll over them with an argument, like, yeah, you may win that argument, but they're going to be so pissed off at you and everybody's going to hate you from that meeting that you don't get to go full blast.
Yeah.
So this experience of jiu-jitsu being like, here you go, here is ironically, a safe space. If you follow these rules, you can go this hard. And now you get to hang out with this cool group of people that's going to love you for the only reason that you're showing up and doing it too.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. That's how pretty much it works. It's controlled violence, right? That's what I heard that term a few times. I like it to say it. Or like what Jocko Willink said. Was it discipline equals freedom?
Discipline equals freedom.
Yeah,
that's a powerful line.
Yeah, it is. It is. I always tease Jared a little bit about that, but hey, man, I think that Jared understand that. One of the students, you met Jared?
Oh yeah, I've watched his transformation. I mean, he was good before, but something clicked in his brain, and you see him tightening down what he eats, tightening down his lifting routine. Then he shows up, and you know what? Jared is I don't want to say kinder. That's not the right word. He is more observant of the people below him than he was before. Yeah. And so it's ironic in the sense that he could do more harm to me right now, but instead he's saying, here, let me show you the position. Let me show you. You watch that transformation happen in a person. It's amazing. It's inspiring.
Yeah, Jared lost a lot of weight, man. He's very like Dr. House, super disciplined. He's always training. I remember when I gave him his blue belt, man, it was the same thing. He was there 5 days a week. He'll go. I think he lives in Collinsville, and he was driving to Belleville all the nights I was there, and he was driving to South County all the nights I was there. So at one point, Jared still trains about 4 or 5 days a week, and back then it was like 6 days a week, and then he was going and competing, and he was listening, and he was doing everything, and he was working out and posting this food in his selfie, and I love seeing that. I love seeing people finding fulfillment in their life, and that drives me to be a better coach to everybody. And I joke around with the guys a lot, but I joke with you guys because I really like you guys, man. It's nothing.
Oh, I mean, I think it reminds me of being in the high school crew that you had before your college crew. Another interesting experience is watching another white belt walk in. So I'm still a white belt, but when I walked in 6 months ago, I am a lot further along than I was before. And there's this new guy named Josh. And I was with Josh when he first came in. I think his dad brought him in. He had long hair. He had a bunch of piercings, and he did not want to be there. He was just kind of doing it because his dad wanted him to. And now, a couple weeks later, I show up at class, and there he is. His hair's cut short. His piercings are out, and he's brand new, but he is willing to go hard.
He was there last night.
Was he? I mean, that's exactly right. And so you hear a guy that here he is, like, 20-something, trying to figure out his way in the world. Am I going to go to college? What am I going to do? And I wouldn't maybe have that much in common with a guy like that, except for we both show up and we're both like, I'm trying to learn. I'm going to keep doing this thing. That's what another thing that I think is so amazing about jiu-jitsu is it creates this community where you can have shared meaning. Because not only does Jared want to get better, so does Josh, so does Lando, so does Elvin.
And Vance, it took me a long time to understand that. At first when I started being a coach myself, I mean, I started teaching in my old coaches, the one coach that I had here for a while in his school. But eventually I started in O'Fallon, Illinois, teaching the community center in 06. And at first I always saw, no, I am a general. I'm going to build an army. I had that mentality. I'm going to train soldiers, And later on, and then from 2006 to 2009, I opened up my Belleville gym. By the way, I did lost my job. My wife was pregnant with my second kid.
Oh, man.
I was super poor, man. I was living in Lima. I had a really crappy home, People, like, my house got robbed. I almost, people trying to invade my house at night, It was crazy. There was a bunch of crazy stuff going on. And then I lost my job. And I was in limbo. I was teaching. My side gig was teaching jiu-jitsu twice a week at the Katie Calvin's Community Center in O'Fallon, Illinois. I was driving from South County all the way. That was about 45-minute drive one way, So at the time I had about 18 students, and I was in doubt. I had some severance money, and I was in doubt if I should have opened up a jiu-jitsu school or keep looking for a job. I keep getting job interviews, but I was getting job offers, but people can match what I made before, and I had a family. I had Alex, my older, was already born, and Amy was pregnant with Ethan. And I'm like, no, man, I need benefits. I need this. And then, so I was turning them down, and I kept looking. So everything kind of worked out, man. I found this awesome landlord in Belleville. And first I was trying to go to a property management group, but then I went, for some reason, I forgot how I ran into the landlord. And he wanted to work things out with me. He gave me an open lease for a year to see how things went. Yes. Because the guy was kind of...
A lot lower risk for you. Yes. More risk for him.
Yes. He was desperate to rent a place. The place was vacant for a long time. So he did it, and I had just enough students. He kind of worked with me, man. I had to show him the students, how I'm going to do things to make sure he's getting the income for the rent. So he did give me the rent, man. And You know, his name is Mr. Vernier, and man, I'm very blessed, you know, that I had him come into my life at the time, back in 2009, and I had the support of the students, man,
And so you're imagining I'm going to turn them into soldiers.
yes, well, this was back in 2006, and in 2009, yes, and my mentality was still like, we're all going to be pit bulls, we're all going to be lions, you know. So that was my mentality, you know, at the time, and then, yeah, I opened up the club, no expectations, like I told you, and then at the time I got a side gig being a bouncer, you know, up in the Central West End, you know.
Wow.
Because I bounced that for several years, and I was bouncing in the club. The owners really liked me, so I was bouncing, I guess, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday nights, and I was still teaching jiu-jitsu every day.
Are you legit having to deal with people when you're bouncing? Are there people that get into fights and you got to take them out?
I got sucker punch. I got, you know, people hit me in the back of my head, and, you know, I had people try to tackle me down.
And this is the way you're paying for your wife and kids is to be a thug, like a professional thug.
It sucked because I was getting unemployment, but the club was paying me with a check, so that was getting deducted out of my employment. So man, I was so poor at the time, but I was poor most of my life, you know. And I even tell people my diet regimen for competing was like cans of tuna and with hot sauce. And
oh man,
yes, that was my protein, you know.
And you're competing against guys that are eating lean meats. And
yes, it's kind of like, and then I mean, I beat top tier guys before, you know, like one of the guys just took second at ECC. I beat the guy before, you know. So you know, I was going against guys like that, and you know, trying to eat as healthy as possible. I was buying like, you know, bananas and
now you're having a gym where you're saying, hey, I'll train you to fight. Yeah. But I need you guys to show up because I need this gym to work.
Yeah. And
how did you then grow it from 16 people from a community center to you have this gym to now being BJJ Lifestyle Academy?
Okay, so this is good for the folks that aspire to open up a school one day, man. You don't bite more than you can chew, because you got to start small. You got to plant that seed, you know, and then start with a community center, start teaching, build a clientele. Very important to build up your name, you know, so it's good for you to compete. And man, I used to max out credit cards paying for my tournaments, you know, and making minimum payments because that's what I had to do to get there. You know, I didn't have sponsors. I was winning titles and, you know, but I didn't have any sponsors like that. So I was actually like sacrificing a lot.
That's a hell of a risk.
Yes, I was sacrificing. It's with no great risk, no great sacrifice, no reward, right?
That's right.
So I was trying my hardest and, you know, and competing in all these competitions. And I did a little bit of MMA too, just to test myself out. I did pretty well. You know, I only competed in MMA for 1 year when I was a purple belt. But anyway, I kept sacrificing a lot to build some type of a name, man. And so I have to work really hard. Nothing is overnight. People think it's overnight. Good luck. You know, even I think I can speak for most small business owners, because what it is, a small business fail within the first year, you know. So my Belleville club just got its 10th anniversary this year in the South County 5th. I guess in martial arts, from what I read, 8 years is like you're not going to go anywhere. If you made through the first 8 years, you're going to be there for good.
Well, because you have guys that are now at the black belt level that they started with you, right?
Yes, from scratch, yes.
And
knowing nothing.
And so let's talk about that for just a second.
Yeah.
Earlier you said when I give somebody a black belt, I'm giving them my lineage essentially.
Yes.
And so tell me about what that's like to say, you have achieved at a high enough level. How much time have they spent with you? How well do you know the person that you end up giving a black belt to?
Well, I look at it different ways. Okay, so I do look at their age. You know, so I don't expect a younger kid to get a black belt fast because I want to make sure they're mature enough to carry the black belt. You know, for a younger kid to carry the black belt, they need to be super responsible or they have to be a fantastic top tier champion. I don't have any of those in my school right now. You know. I have some really tough guys and they can be very competitive, but I don't have like a top level.
And what's that Josh kid, that little kid? He's good.
Yeah, he's really, really good. Yes,
he's good.
He's a little
15-year-olds put me in a triangle choke more than once.
Josh Crago, yeah. He started with me since he was a little boy.
Wow.
Know? Yeah, and he absorbs everything as a sponge. You know, the kid's fantastic. You know, his dad and his mom is very supportive. You know, I wish I had parents who were supportive like he did, you know. So I have other friends too. I have another friend too that I used to train with me in the old days, and he's a big champion now too, and his parents supported him a lot. So I see how important it is the parents to support that. The parents will take him like Josh's parents took him to Japan to compete before.
Wow.
You know, which to me, that's like, wow, it's mind-boggling. I think they're taking him to the Europeans next year to compete. I think it's in Portugal, you know?
And you know what? That kid shows up. He's the most respectful kid I've ever met.
Yes, yeah.
He's kind. He's quiet.
Yes.
He's observant.
Yes, very observant, very focused. You know, he's got the quality to become a top-notch grappler for sure.
So with the black belts, if they're older, they generally have mellowed out by the time they've gotten to the level that they're close to getting a black belt.
Yeah, I mean, the black belts that I have right now were Neil Winkler, Anthony Bird, and Morgan
Anthony
Freed.
and Morgan.
Yes. All three of those guys, man, they're guys I look up to, man. And I look at them as my equals. And I'm not saying nobody is not equal to me, but I'm thinking like, okay, so these guys, man, they have busy lives, they have families, and they're not going to give me some bullshit excuse. They're going to train, they're going to be there, you know, they're going to show up, they're going to still compete here and there. You know, they live the jiu-jitsu lifestyle, you know? So, and they're proficient. They're very good about it. I had other friends from Brazil that came up and says, man, these guys are good. Mike, when are you going to give this guy the black belt? When are you going to give this guy the black belt? So the Brazilian guys were telling me that. I'm like, okay, so I guess he's ready, you know? So, and they're super responsible guys, man. And I really look up to all three of them, you know?
You know, that's a great example of the thing that you have to be willing to do in order to get your black belt. The very first thing is to walk in the door.
Yes.
Right. And most people, I wouldn't, you know, and it's probably worth me telling how I got to your studio.
Yeah.
But the way that it happened was my buddy Rob Long and I, we're very good friends. We focus on how can we get better today and tomorrow. And we're doing that all the time. And he just on his own decided he was going to do jiu-jitsu. I think he mentioned it to me offhandedly, but I was like, that's not for me.
Yeah.
So he calls up his buddy that does combatives. He teaches military people from all over the world how to do hand-to-hand combat. So his buddy knows his stuff. Mm-hmm. And that guy, when Rob asked him, I want to start doing jiu-jitsu, where should I go? He's like, you should go to Mike.
Okay.
You know, this is the place that you should go. So out of all the trainers anywhere, he was like, you're real lucky that you're in St. Louis because you can go here. Mm-hmm. Just having heard that, it actually made walking in the door more frightening. Mm-hmm. And I wish it hadn't, because it pushed me back 3 months or so to walk in, because it is so scary that you're going to walk in and you're going to embarrass yourself and the other people are going to beat you or you're going to look foolish. But you compare that with the other day I was at Open Mats and Anthony Bird, he ends up watching me roll with another white belt. Mm-hmm. And I have this sense of like joy while he's watching, because I'm like, there's a chance that he's going to watch what I'm doing and then tell me how to get better. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing that flips. It's like going from that fear thing of being embarrassed to then hoping one of the best guys in there will watch you to help you get better. Yeah. That's when that's the thing that you can't tell somebody about that sensation. It only happens if you're there live, having somebody that is at his level take the time to watch you fight.
Yeah. No, I know exactly what you're talking about, because that's how it was when my coaches were watching me, you know? So, yeah, I mean, like I said, everything is a journey, man, you know, and I'm always paying attention to all the students, you know. I know Bart does help me a lot with them. Morgan does it. Even like Jason Conway is another friend of mine. He comes up, he's a black belt. He trains with us pretty much Saturdays.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. That dude, he's a praying mantis.
Yes.
That's another amazing thing about jiu-jitsu, is that everyone, because they come with a different body size, because they come with different body mechanics, they all have their own spin on the school that you have. Yeah. So we were talking before about Bart, but this other guy you were just saying, the other black belt that comes in, what's his name again? Jason, right?
Conway, yes.
Yeah. And I mean, he's like a praying mantis.
Yes.
He's not big. He's not bulky. But once he climbs on top of you, and it's like being slowly squeezed, and it's one of those great experiences of getting choked out by all these different people, because you're like, look at all of these different ways to improvise. It's like jazz and chess at the same time.
Exactly. A lot of people refer to jiu-jitsu as human chess. You know, basically you got to understand how to move, apply your movements, and stay in a step ahead of your opponent. A lot of anticipation, you know, and everything is based off in leverage and movement, you know?
So what was it like for you when your hips start having these problems? You're the man. People come to your gym because you're the man, and now your body is breaking down. What's that like?
Oh, man, it was like the walls closing in. I felt like was, you know, like I was in that trash compactor in Star Wars, man. Everything kept closing in. The pain kept, taking over, and I had so.
What took you so long to get a surgery?
Man, I think it was just I thought that I could do all these other treatments and maybe it'll work, maybe it will. Maybe I should have just jumped right in. Honestly, I made a big mistake. I mean, I was like the pain was controlling my life. I mean, I remember even my judgment was clouded. I got crabby really easy. Some of the parents even told me, like after my surgery, one of the moms of these two little kids that trained me in Belleville told me, she flat out told me, I love when people tell me what they see, because it tells me like you're a lot less crabby now. She told me that. So I was like, that's good. That's result right there,
But it does make you reflect,
Yes.
like, who was I when I was under this pain?
Yeah, it was weird, Vance. I mean, after the pain was pretty much gone, I still have some, but I mean, everything was clouded. I couldn't think right. I couldn't speak properly. I couldn't even articulate a conversation like we are right now. It was hard for me because I was in constant pain, even sitting down.
How was your relationship with your family?
It was awful. To the point that I had to ask my doctor for a prescription for mental illness, for me to be able to
handle the stress,
even like talk to my family and help things out, man. That's when I realized I need to do surgery, I mean, I tried stem cell therapy, I tried PRP, I tried cortisone shots, and reality is when you have, advanced osteoarthritis in your hips, you need to just get the surgery done to be over with, And that's what I did. I did hip resurfacing, called the Birmingham hip resurfacing. I did one in the end of November last year, and I did one in mid-March this year.
So both of the hips are
both
replaced?
Of the hips, yes. I still need to operate on both my elbows that I know of. And I'm postponing that right now, and my shoulder's been acting up too.
Dude,
so.
I've been telling you this for a long time, but I tried to have my wife be here for this because my wife is like the best physical therapist in the world.
I believe you.
She is an aerospace engineer turned physical therapist. Mm-hmm. And you know how you talked about your passion being like, I want to learn how to choke people and fight. Yeah. Her passion was, I know that if you teach somebody how to move differently, it will change how they interpret pain, or it's how they handle it. And I have seen miracles happen. We walk down the street and somebody will see her that's one of her patients, and they will hug her and hold her arms and they're like, this woman changed my life. So anyway, I digress. But my wife, we gotta get you set up there.
Oh,
man.
Let's do it.
Because she's the best.
Yeah, I'm excited.
So what should other people be afraid of as far as injuries with jiu-jitsu?
Well,
because I got a shiner over here somewhere.
Here's the thing. Okay, so we talked about Orlando earlier, right? So Orlando told me, Coach, my elbow's hurting. Dude, just take off 2 weeks, man. Do the therapy, Do some therapy. If you don't have a physical therapist, go online, study. Sometimes I send videos to him, do this. Learn from others' mistakes. So if I see any student listening to this right now, any jiu-jitsu practitioner, if you're hurt, don't power through it. Just take a week off or so, Call your doctor. Maybe he can give you some anti-inflammatory or something and tell to lay off, elevate, do the whole rice thing, right?
Yeah, and it's this difficulty though, because you've got a passion, you're feeling like, hey, I want to keep going up the hill. Yeah. And truly, there's that voice in your head that remember when you, like, certainly you've tried to jog before, and then you wake up the next day and you're supposed to go jogging, but you're like, I'm a little sore, and your brain talks you out of working out. You know you should go for a run, but you don't do it.
Yeah.
I think that's what happens with people that want to get good at jiu-jitsu. You've learned how to walk past that voice that talks you out of doing what you know you should do, but then you can take it too far.
Oh, no, that voice is my inner demon, man. I mean, I think you should listen to people that gone through it, I mean, I'm a real life experience here, but I mean, a little soreness is one thing. I'm a little sore every day,
Me too.
But you can, if your elbow's acting up to the point you can extend your elbow, just take a week off.
Yeah. And there's no shame in it.
No, there's no shame. It's just you need to heal your body. How are you going to be able to perform if you don't have your body?
Right.
And that's what it was for the past few years. I'm trying to train. I can't. It's frustrating. I was down to just training once a week. It was on Saturdays, and everything was a challenge, man. Everything, even waking up was a challenge. I can even put my shoes on, my socks. I still have a hard time. I'm getting there. I still need to use a little shoehorn. I have this little apparatus made out of PVC that I put my socks on. I slip my foot on, So I still have to do things like that, Do
you view that as the price everybody has to pay to do jiu-jitsu?
Not necessarily. I know a lot of other peers of mine that I follow online. They don't have the body as bad or as destroyed as mine. I think I got too heavy, and I think that's part of the problem. I should have taken better care of myself, and I think as long as you take care of yourself, I think you'll be fine.
What are you doing for eating now? You're definitely slimming down.
Yeah. Well, I am trying to, I'm doing like kind of a ketogenic diet with some fasting in the morning, So like I said, I'm trying to do like...
Yeah, you told me before we turned this thing on, you fast till 3 o'clock?
Yeah, 3 o'clock most of the time.
Man, that means you're training at noon.
Yeah. And in the morning I hit the gym, and I've been doing a lot of full body workouts lately. I started doing back my pull-ups, my dips and all that, because that'll build up all my grip strength, So I try to I still like my hips still kind of like I don't trust it fully, so I can't really do a whole lot with that, But there's a lot of challenges still that I got to face. But I think within time, I think I'll get back to where I want to be,
And, I am excited because you're continuing to expand the gym. What is, if you were to imagine the perfect gym for yourself, looking out 5-10 years, the school continues to grow at the right pace. What is the gym that you would put together if money were not an object?
So a couple years ago, I went to do a seminar at one of my friend's gyms in Denver in Colorado, and he had this huge warehouse gym with, I don't know, man, I think one of the mat space, I'm just a ballpark number. I think just one mat space was a good, I don't know, man. I'm really bad with that, but I would say 2,000 square feet.
Oh man,
yes,
huge!
It was huge. It was a warehouse, and then he had 2 or 3. I think it was 3 separate rooms with mat space to teach different classes. I would love to have something like that one day. Classes running all day long with multiple coaches. I think they had 18 coaches and staff.
Yeah, and then would you foresee a weight room being there? And
yes, weight room, a cage, a separate MMA team. Like a very organized, but I know people here in this area tried those before. It failed,
Why?
I don't know, man. I think it's more because of the area, the mentality, I mean, we are in an area that the gyms are striving for $10 a month gyms. So the way I look at it, that's how people reflect off on how much they value their health and their fitness,
I think that there's a new wave coming. You may be right about that part of it, but I'm watching people spend hundreds of dollars every week for Orange Theory or for CrossFit. And I think there's not everybody that's doing those things wants to go roll, but I think there's a group of men and women, because women show up and do this like men. There's not that many.
Yeah, we got some tough girls. Yeah.
Total respect for a woman that shows up and says, I'm going to drill with the guys. But there are people that are paying hundreds of dollars. I think they just don't know what is out there. I think that once people realize that jiu-jitsu is something that even a guy like Vance can do, I think all of a sudden you start seeing a lot more people show up. And I think things like Joe Rogan and Jocko Willink have done a lot for jiu-jitsu. That's how I learned about it.
Oh no, trust me. When they started their podcast, I've been getting a lot more inquiries, especially for guys around our age,
Right, and guys that are looking for meaning.
Yes, exactly.
Guys that are saying there's some part of myself that I know I'm not working out hard enough. Yeah. And I mean, for me, the amount of meaning it's brought to my life, this maybe is a good place for us to wrap up, because I'm so appreciative of your time. But for me, I run and I lift, and I told you, I ran 500 miles this year. I'm almost done with it. I'm 24 miles left in that run. But nothing in my life gave me as much clarity and as much respect and an understanding of how far it is that I have to go, but to not rush to achieve it. Just be there and enjoy it. Like you said, enjoy the journey as this. And I would say it is transformative in my life. So I am deeply grateful that you have started your program, that you came up from Brazil, that you've made all this happen. It's made a huge difference in my life. And so have the guys at our gym. I mean, so if people wanted to find out more about your gym, if they're in St. Louis or they wanted to stop in, how do they find you? How do they learn more about your school?
So my website, I have a new website up, is bjjlifestyleacademy.com. I'm on Instagram at bjj_lifestyle_academy. And I'm on Facebook too, on the BJJ Lifestyle Academy. They can find me through any social media. I have a YouTube channel too. I teach some techniques. I need to update that. But I also offer a free week trial for adults and 2-week free trial for children. They can participate at both clubs, so they can at least have a feel for it. And I believe that everybody should at least try to have a feel for it.
What's the age that a parent that they're thinking, hey, I want to get my kid in for lessons? What age should they start thinking about it?
That depends on the kid. Like sometimes they successfully get a 5-year-old in there, but that's kind of rare. I honestly think that when the kid's in first grade, about 6, 7 years old, it's about the right age to start.
And what kind of kid does well coming to jiu-jitsu?
Any, because I teach the children to completely different than the adults,
What's the difference?
I give them more discipline, more structure, the techniques are very basic. I don't teach anything advanced to the children. That way they have a good foundation. If they want to continue later on in life, they have this really solid foundation for them to, and plus the self-defense is in the basics,
And it would seem to me that much more of they do a lot less free rolling and a lot more of like, we're going to just drill this move over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And then whenever we're stretching, they're playing tag and all that stuff. It's fun to see. I like the fact that those two classes intersect.
I teach them that if you work hard, you get rewarded. So they get to play a game in the end of the class. If they goof off and don't listen, then okay, no game tonight.
I don't know that I've ever seen such controlled chaos as a room of kids that are all excited, but they're all listening to Coach Mike. So,
exactly.
Coach, thank you so much for stopping by here. This was a pleasure, and I will undoubtedly have you back on the podcast.
Sounds good.
Thanks for coming by.
Yes, have a good day.
Well, that's it for this week's interview with Mike Rethmeyer. Thank you so much for sticking around all the way to the end. 6 months ago, I remember walking up to the front door and opening it up so that I could go to my first BJJ class, and it was frightening. I was scared. I was in good shape. I was strong. I had good cardio strength, but I knew that I was going to go into a place and I was going to look foolish and I'd probably get embarrassed and I might not be good enough and everybody might look at me funny. And I had all of these thoughts rolling around in my head for weeks, if not months, before I decided to walk in that front door. But once you open it up and you cross the threshold and you make eye contact with somebody in the gym that says, how can we help you? And you say, I'm thinking about starting. The hardest part is over because you've walked past all of the voices of resistance that have told you you can't do it, you shouldn't do it, you're not going to be capable of it. And now you're there. And once you're there, there's going to be a group of people that all also had their first day in class when they were afraid of being foolish, and they're going to know exactly what you're going through. And so they're going to try and put you on the path, and you'll begin to make friends, and you'll start to understand the structure. And then all of the physical work, all of the habits that need to be developed, those are not so difficult. They are only things that you have to get your arms around. But the most difficult part walking through that front door is the thing that keeps most people from trying something new. And I hope if you're out on the internet and you are trying to find podcasts to expand the way you think about things and you're trying to push yourself forward, that sometimes this leads to you trying a new skill and trying to learn something. So I hope that if you have any interest at all in Brazilian Jiu Jitsu and you're in the St. Louis area, that you stop by the Lifestyle Academy. But if not, go try it in your own area. And if not Jiu Jitsu, try it in some other domain. But make it a goal to try and walk past all of those voices of resistance, open up the door, and walk towards a new skill or ability. You will be grateful that you did. Thank you so much for listening. I'm glad you've stayed here all this time. And tune in on Friday for another As the Crow Flies episode where I will be talking about skills that can help you become a tangibly better communicator. Thanks so much. We'll see you later.